Hey everyone, I welcome you all to my channel. An adventurous story awaits us, so grab some snacks, get comfy, and let your imagination take flight. First story by Jalcott. The Walking Dead, about a man who came back from the dead. Oh, spooky. This is the legend of Marion Duchesne. When he was young, Marion joined the army, but then mysteriously disappeared one night. For 10 whole years, nobody knew where he was. People thought he must have died. But then one day, a very tall man showing up, claiming to be Marion Duchesne, walked into a hospital near where I used to work. This dude looked exactly like Marion, but he had been gone for an entire decade. He was covered in dirt and wearing the same old clothes from the night he vanished. The government checked, and it really was Marion. Isn't that nuts? His family didn't want anything to do with him, though. As far as they were concerned, Marion was dead, and this must be some imposter playing a trick. They called him a haint, like a ghost. So Marion, or his ghost, just wandered the hospital halls day and night with a weird smile on his face. He would laugh silently to himself too, which, let me tell ya, was pretty freaky to see. Marion also didn't seem to care about eating or smoking or anything. The docs tried giving him medications, but nothing worked. It was like he just didn't need anything anymore. On my last day working at that hospital, I saw Marion outside laughing in the parking lot. I still wonder sometimes if that was really old Marion's ghost I spent all that time with. Crazy, right? Let me know what you think really happened to him in the comments. Smash that like button if you want more freaky true stories in the future. Okay, towards the next story. This second story is from Nuclear Hubris that gave me the chills. Let me break it down for you all. So one night, Nuclear Hubris was on a long, late-night road trip with his mom and older sister. They were cruising along the freeway when they realized they needed to make a pit stop to get gas and use the restrooms. Luckily, there was a rest area coming up in about 200 miles. It was the only place to stop for miles and miles around. When they pulled up, there were 2 other groups already there. Some teenagers piling out of a van, and 2 young guys standing perfectly still by a small gray car. Right away, Nuclear Hubris got seriously creepy vibes. Even though they'd stopped at lots of rest stops before, this one felt different. His mom and sister went inside while Nuclear Hubris waited in the car. That's when things got freaky. The group of teenagers suddenly took off looking scared. And the 2 guys kept standing completely frozen in place, not moving at all, like statues. Nuclear Hubris watched them and said their eyes looked pitch black, like endless dark holes. Then his mom and sister came racing out to the car, obviously freaked out. When they drove away fast, the 2 guys slowly turned their heads to stare back. Yikes. But the creepiest part was later when they couldn't find that rest stop anywhere, no signs of it existing at all. Makes you wonder if they stopped at some ghostly rest stop in another dimension or something. Shivers. So what do you think happened there? Leave your theories in the comments. Okay. Up next, third story by Alec Hatson. It came for us in the graveyard. So, we were 18 and looking for some fun. We decided to go hang out at the old graveyard on the edge of town. I know, not the smartest idea. So there we were, driving around this huge cemetery in my friend's old car. We got out and started walking around, exploring the place. As we were wandering around, we came up to a little pond with someone sitting on a rock on the other side. We couldn't see his face, but he looked like a man wearing one of those old-timey top hats. So, us being silly teenagers, We waved and shouted, "Hi there!" But this man didn't wave back. He didn't even move. Then all of a sudden, he jumps up, starts running on top of the water towards us, then disappears into thin air halfway across. We freaked out and ran screaming back to the car. When we got to the car, it wouldn't start no matter how hard we tried. As we're freaking out trying to get it going, we hear this creepy banging sound coming from the back. We didn't see anyone around, but something was definitely banging on the car every few seconds. I was totally panicking at this point, but my friends kept me from losing it. We were too scared to get out of the car because of that freaky banging. After a minute, it finally stopped. I tried to call my mom for help, but none of us had cell phone service. Weird, we all felt this heavy, oppressive feeling, like something pressing down hard on our chests. It was so scary. Finally, the car started, and we sped out of there so fast. As soon as we left the cemetery, our phones started working again. I have no clue what kind of ghost or spirit we ran into that night, but it was definitely something supernatural. We never hung out in any cemeteries ever again after that, I'll tell you. So that's my creepy graveyard story. Friends, let me know in the comments if you've ever had any freaky paranormal stuff happen to you. Smash that like button if you thought this tale was spooky. Now towards the second last story. Fourth story by Barbcats73. It was good to see an old friend. I've got a crazy ghost story to share about seeing an old high school friend. Let me set the scene for you. When I was 37, I went back to my hometown for a high school reunion. I hadn't been back in years. Now, my hometown was out in the middle of nowhere. We're talking rural country roads and forests. After landing at the airport, I rented a car and started the long drive, about 35 miles. About 3 miles out from my hometown, I see someone waving me down on the side of the road. Turns out, it was this guy named Jim that I went to high school with. I hadn't seen Jim in 20 years, but he looked mostly the same, just a little older. I offered Jim a ride, but he only wanted to go as far as the edge of town, out by the fairgrounds and cemetery. See, that area had a mobile home park, and I figured maybe Jim lived out there now. When we got there, Jim thanked me for the ride and disappeared into the night. Later, at the reunion, I told some old classmates about picking up Jim. But here's the creepy part. Everyone just went dead silent. My cousin turned white as a ghost. Finally, someone was like, Barb, Jim died 8 years ago in a car crash on that very curve where you saw him. I felt dizzy, so I went to my car to get some air. And right there on the passenger seat was an old newspaper with Jim's obituary from 8 years before. To this day, I still have that newspaper. Sometimes I look at it and wonder, what really happened that night? Creepy, right? Have any of you had supernatural experiences with old friends? Let me know in the comments. And don't ghost me, subscribe for more chilling tales. Now, last story. Fifth story by Spooky Weave. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. I want to tell you a spooky story from my childhood. When we were young, my family moved into a house that we later learned had a dark history. You see, the previous owner was an abusive man whose wife sadly passed away, there under mysterious circumstances. After we moved in, creepy things started happening, especially to my brother. He would wake up with mysterious scratches all over his body. It seemed to happen most often whenever he was mean to my sister or me. One night, after my brother hurt his twin sister, he woke up with a horrible bloody nose. Yikes! Another night, our huge antique dresser suddenly slammed to the ground, even though our tiny dogs could never have pushed it over. The scariest part was the day we moved out. My brother accidentally broke his twin's arm while they were wrestling. He swears he would have died that night if we hadn't left when we did. So what do you think, friends? Was our house haunted by the troubled spirit of that poor woman, or just a string of coincidences? Either way, we were happy to get out of there. Stay tuned for more true, scary stories soon.